Hey there, folks. Welcome back to Laws of Creation, where I talk to amazing creatives who also have healthy lifestyles about the habits, routines, tricks, and anything else that brings them into their creative process and also gives them contentment. I'm here with the epically talented John Juan. John, thank you so much for being here, brother. Why don't you tell us in a little 5-minute snippet here, a bit of your backstory, everything up to now.
Wow.
I know. It's
five minutes. 5 minutes. I like that. A lot of my story goes along with music because, I'm a musician but it hasn't been just music. It's what's helped me find the songs, which is other activities in my life beyond music, the stuff I read, the sports I do, being with my family and the stuff I do with them, gardening, cooking, and all sorts of crafting. These things help me find the music and the songs. And I feel like it all goes together, and I learn a lot about life when I'm doing a lot of these kind of crafting or just body activities. When I say body activities, I mean like sports or meditating or something like that, or surfing.
Gotcha. Do you have any specific schedule you do for your sports or those type of body activities, a routine or a cycle to it?
Oh, absolutely. Stretching I found to be super important for body strength. And I like to stretch at least 3 times a week, like big, like yoga sessions. And then I do a lot of push-ups, pull-ups, play full court basketball, and surf when possible, or that's really the ultimate workout when there's a good swell and I can go surfing for a few days.
Oh wow, a few days. Nice.
I actually just save up my chips and really don't go locally, and then spot out a really good swell when it comes to Mexico.
Wow.
And
nice.
Then everyone knows, work, family, that everything's going to shut down for a few days. And I go and I get unlimited waves, and I feel like I come back as a superhero in not only my body, but my mind.
Right.
After just all that, ingesting all that just nature and the physical energy, it really fills me back up. And then I don't even feel like I need to go surfing when I get back to LA, go to the crowds and the traffic, and I just feel kind of rejuvenated.
That's interesting. I feel like a lot of people in LA probably feel bonded. I don't surf myself, but I imagine surfers, some here, feel bonded to being in the local area because it is so close. That's really cool that you're kind of picking your spots there. Can you give any of your specific spots in Mexico that you like to go, or is it a secret?
Well, with my family, I just like going to northern Baja, south of Rosarito, and hanging out, eating seafood and surfing around there. But otherwise, it's a secret surf spot. It doesn't have a name, and it's about 8 hours down from here, going towards down in Baja, and about as far as Tahoe going north. You go.
Gotcha.
You go south to Baja, and but that it really it's remote and there's no people around, and you really get that nature experience too, which I think really helps the whole creative process.
Hell yeah. How long have you been surfing for?
I've been surfing since I was a teenager, and I feel like surfing, it could be an analogy for most things.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the waves themselves to paddling out and whatnot, and just I've inspired a lot of my lyrics. A lot of my lyrics have been inspired by when I've been out surfing, and a combination of physical activity with like beauty and stimulation, and having to be creative when I'm out in the water too, just moving in the right places.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people say, and I've surfed once, but that it takes all your attention, right? And it puts you in that flow, like the flow of the ocean. You have to be paying attention to exactly what's happening. You're in pure reaction and creativity mode, because you're also deciding when you're moving is this, and you tell me this is correct or not, that when you're actually riding a wave, like you're doing moves. So there's a creative aspect there, but it's also, like you said, tide, man.
And you get really intuitive. Most surfers out there will say that after a good long wave, they couldn't tell you exactly what happened, because you get so in tune.
Yeah, interesting.
The wave, and you learn the fastest way from point A to point B is not always a straight line.
Right.
There's just a lot of turning involved. And Einstein got most of his ideas riding his bike.
Hell yeah.
He says clearly in writing. And so, we're inspired by nature around us. And you asked me specifically about my schedule.
Yeah.
What I got to do is, now that I have kids and job and stuff like that, most of the time I don't have my daytimes available. So I get up super early before anyone can affect my brain, and I'll do my workout and my writing and stuff, ideally before anyone even wakes up.
You say 6 a.m.? Is that your time?
My magic time is when I'm getting up at like 5 a.m. or 4:30 when I'm really writing. But then when I'm not writing, I'll get up at like 6 or something like that before everyone else, just to do some stretches and check the garden and check my mental health.
Absolutely.
And
super important.
All that before I jumped into my day, and I'm responsive to people.
Is that like 6 to 9 a.m.? How many hours is that? And specifically, do you have an order of things that you do?
Yeah. Ideally I get up at 4:30 and turn on the sauna. Nice. I have a barrel sauna now in the back of my house.
I didn't realize that. That's awesome, man.
Start making some coffee.
Yeah.
And instead of turning on Instagram or something like that is when I read. Yes. I try to be not affected by any my screens or device. I'll do my just read, but be influenced by someone else. Have a good poop in a sauna. And then getting into either my stretching or pull-ups, and then the ideas start flickering, right. and then I try to write them down before on a typewriter or handwritten, or grab an instrument. Sometimes I can retain that if it's a song idea, the idea by picking up an instrument.
Gotcha.
And do that before my kids start waking up at 6:45 to get into school.
Gotcha. Makes sense. That's an epic routine, man. I love that you have the sauna back there now. That's super beneficial for a lot of different health reasons, right?
Oh, definitely.
That's rad, brother. So what are some things you're working on right now creatively that you got going?
Well, I'm happy to have one album pretty much finished with Angel Roche and Zoe. Metamorphosis, the new John Juan record, Metamorphosis, is going to be coming out in 2023.
Heck yeah.
And I've got another album produced by Jason Hill of cult fame with Louis XIV. That'll be coming out 2024. Totally different thing. More like pianos and horns and stuff like that. And then the other one's more guitar and drums and stuff.
Yeah.
And then constantly writing. Still just finishing up the book from my last record, Never Sleeping.
Incredible.
and we're going to do an audio book on it, and it really talks about a lot of the stuff about what influences me in my songwriting and where songs come from, and the benefits of lifestyle really over just rote practicing to be inspired.
So setting up the conditions, that I want to talk specifically about the book. Yeah, so lifestyle versus rote, just hammering away. Setting up the conditions is what allows any creativity to happen, is what you're saying.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm with it.
And then the magic happens.
Yep. Just be there. So specifically, what are some things in the book that you get into? You were explaining it a little bit before the show, but want to say a little bit about what the book actually is.
It's really kind of like an alternative, ultimate guide to writing music in a way. The part one is called The History of Divine Influence in Poetry. And it talks about how the best songs and poems and literature was not force written, but it was divinely inspired, which means the writers, they received the poetry and rhythm, often in music, and music is a very easy thing to receive in rhythm because it's very rhythmic. But how they receive their influence, and I have an amazing bibliography of awesome writers who tell you how it's done. So it's not just John Juan telling you how, but like it's Emily Dickinson and Ernest Hemingway and James Joyce and Jack Kerouac, Marcel Proust, Sir Philip Sidney, among many others, just magical gems.
Yeah, it sounds like a great resource.
And I feel like people can tell me stuff that should go in here, and I'm never finishing it because I'm always updating it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, so when you're talking about somebody receiving a poem in a rhythm, are you saying that these great poets, they actually heard, or hearing in music, they actually heard music and then just wrote down the words? Is that what a lot of some people said?
Sometimes it's received the music and the lyrics together. Yeah. Ultimately, sometimes it's in dream format, like in your dream, or when you wake up from your dream, or when you're surfing,
right? Or how many of your songs? What percentage of your songs do you hear in your head before you put them to an instrument / vocalize them versus stuff when you're writing on an instrument?
Pretty much everything I've already heard. Like gotcha. It's and then it was whether I've heard the music with the lyrics or not. Ideally the music and the lyrics come together. Sometimes it's just the music that'll be there for a long, long time until the lyrics match up. Or I've had music that I've forced the lyrics onto. Yeah. And just kind of always wasn't there. And then I'll toss out the song, and then suddenly one day the lyrics of the song. Yeah. They'll just come to me. I know what I know what they are. Yeah. And there's a lot of theories of where ancient memory is accessed. And a lot of this is, many of these songs have probably been written before. Huh. And I'm just catching them. And it's all going around in the universe, and it's all up for grabs. Yeah. And it is stored in places, in sounds and waves around us. Stuff resounds. Right. And I go, so part one is I go into the history of divine influence, where I talk about people, just how they get it and whatnot. Part two is I go into never sleeping, which is our subconscious, where a lot of the stuff is there for us. It's already there. Just we have to access it through our dreams and dream journals. Right. And then I go into past lives, which is a whole nother thing about like maybe we have experience from previous lives and our ability to write songs and knowledge that we've had from previous lives. And maybe that's sometimes why we can recognize something so quickly, because we're already familiar.
Right. It sounds like you've heard it before in your head. You're like, yeah, makes sense. So because language has changed so much throughout the years, are you talking about in terms of receiving songs that have already been written, that you are receiving an energetic type of thing, like the feeling of the concept, then you're regurgitating it in modern terms? Or are you saying word for word? Because I mean, language has just changed. I'd imagine it's what I just said.
Well, you do hear it, and there's a famous story where Led Zeppelin's talking about conceptualizing "Stairway to Heaven," their most famous song, because there was a court case about it. They're like, no, we received this one around the campfire. This is totally divine influence. Like Jimmy Page starts playing something and that sounds kind of Celtic, and it takes Robert Plant to some of the Celtic faraway land, and he goes to the lyrics. But it's hard to tell what the lyrics are sometimes, because sometimes he says sometimes words have two meanings. He says in the song, and you can misinterpret, like, that's an interesting thing. You get the song, and sometimes you're not exactly sure what it means or what it is. Sometimes you got one word different, or you catch it different, or you're not even sure what it means. A lot of my songs actually have been clues to myself, I feel, in the future, because I write a song, and then there's some time in the future where I need the message of the song, and I've already written it. So there's a kind of theory of time's not linear, just like in your dreams, how you see stuff that happens before it actually happens. And you can, I feel like you can get songs that way.
For sure. So do you feel like that's a subconscious building of things kind of interpolating out, or it's like you're saying a nonlinear time of subconscious being, tapping into a deeper level of than our conscious awareness on a time scale, so that you're actually viewing something, or something is being viewed in the future that is literally being like, this message needs to exist for you to do what you're meant to do.
Well, it's that scientists like Einstein say, that we've developed points in science, like points of reference to get us around through our day. Otherwise, we can't get through our day if we didn't have a time calendar, right?
Yeah.
But it's really not that these rules are actually just kind of good points of reference, because like they figured out, Galileo, like where all the planets were and all the lines and where everything was going, but he didn't have it. It's a great points of reference, but he didn't have it right, because Galileo didn't have it right because the Earth wasn't. Galileo had the Earth in the center of the universe instead of the sun, but it all kind of worked because it was good points of reference.
Yeah.
And gravity, nothing. Actually, everyone thought like an apple falls straight down for a long time because someone discovered gravity, but actually, that's not true. Everything's going in circles, and everything's moving, and nothing goes straight. And so basically, Einstein just took all this science that was all determined as fact and said, hey, that's pretty good points of reference that helps us get around. But it's not actually right.
Totally.
Or true if you look at it really, because there's all these things that can affect something from happening. Even just light can speed up something. And so if we're just catching bits of light from a long time ago, I mean, sound moves a lot slower. I feel like you can pick up and catch sound a lot quicker. But I just feel like there's just so much unexplained, out there, and not that we understand it, but people who can reference that can seem to write or create an insane amount of material beyond what they should be able to do in a lifetime.
Right. Because they're open to that. They're receiving it. Being like, because I think the opposite of that is being egotistical and believing you are generating everything. And so you're going to be a whipping boy to yourself, or a whipping girl, like to think that's a whole extra layer of unnecessary anxiety when you could just be listening.
Totally, dude. And the people who sometimes whip themselves and do over practicing, over rote stuff they begin to mimic themselves and their own habits, or they're trying to replicate what someone else has done. And you find your best writers, like in my book that I go through, they're lifestyle writers. They're doing other things in writing. And you're like, for example, Dostoevsky was actually, your girlfriend has the book right here. He was pretty comfortable in his life, but he got thrown into cataclysm when he got thrown into exile in Siberia, and then suddenly, in exile in Siberia, he gets all these
ideas. Gotcha. I didn't realize that part of history at all.
And
that's wild, man.
So it wasn't, so it wasn't all his studying. It was when he was thrown into craziness.
Right. And that also speaks to just that struggle in and of itself. When you have a compelling worldview or compelling passion for something in particular, give somebody the energy to derive meaning from what seemingly is the hardest situation possible.
Totally.
Which is like stress. It's like when you stress anything, you end up growing it, because the universe is resilient in and of itself. Existence is defiant from the beginning of we shouldn't. Yeah. Anyway, I love that, man. Are there any other authors that you've been reading lately that have been really getting you going in terms of inspiration for the new stuff?
Well, the next book is that goes along with the next record is Metamorphosis.
Nice. So some Kafka stuff.
So I definitely do have some Kafka, and there's a lot of there's a whole theme of physical change that people go through and authors go through. Specifically, I'm reading a few things right now. I'm going back to Joyce. I found writings of his from his manuscripts of Portrait of an Artist that are totally different than the current that are totally different than what he actually did. You see kind of his more younger writing,
like the demo version of it.
Yep, and gotcha. You see his demo version is more youthful writing, and him kind of creating his theories, like I am with my never sleeping stuff, and it's a really cool insight to his earlier life. Otherwise, I have on deck. I almost don't even know how to say this, but because I haven't explained this yet, or I don't even know if we'll put this in the video or not. But my next one is a Jack Kerouac book that I feel that in a past life I was the writer Jack Kerouac.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
And it goes into in my past lives, I go into this subject.
Cool.
And how it all happened. But when you ask me about what I have to read next, it almost makes me scared, because I know that there's a few books I'm supposed to read, and I keep them around, and I feel really comfortable until I'm ready to read them. And there's some books though that I know from my past life being Jack Kerouac, I'm not ready to read it yet, but I have it sitting around as my next thing I'm supposed to read.
Gotcha.
And but that's all me being really crazy.
I mean, I can't speak to the past lives because I haven't had truly cognizant experiences of like visions or anything like that, or personally. But I mean, if that's how you feel, and like if you've had experiences that make you believe that, more power to you, brother. Like, and I get it.
Or I've had certain books that I like, the one by Marcel Proust, who wrote In Search of Lost Time, that I only read half of it. Then it just sat there. I don't know why it sat there, and I never finished it. And then suddenly I was ready to read the words in it, and I read it, and it was at the perfect time I needed to read it. Right. So it's really weird. I have random books around that I know I need to get to. I have books that I avoided in college that now I'm just reading now. Nice. And they all look insane once I read them. If it's a good one, they're all marked up and tagged up. But literature is a huge part of my lifestyle. But also it's just the physical stuff too. Like when my body feels better, my mind feels better. Like when I had my knee injury real recently, like I couldn't write or do music or anything. I just needed to get better. I just needed to heal and sleep.
For sure. So you were explaining before we started here that you'd had a knee injury, and you tried a new treatment for that, right?
Yeah.
Well, what was that you were talking about?
It's called sacrocranial therapy, where instead of, I've been doing a ton of stretching and ice, but it's where someone actually just touches you on a table and gets your body fluid moving everywhere. And it just feels like you've had a limb that was asleep that just woke up.
Gotcha.
Not sure to turn this off.
I didn't realize that it felt like that. That's interesting. So, but it gets the tide of your body fluids basically moving that have been stuck. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. And you retain in your body memories of stuff that's happened physically to you, whether it was the trauma itself from getting whacked or just stress or tension in there, and it's stuck in there. And sometimes you just need your body to remember how to heal itself. And it's a technique that was developed in the 1800s. I want to read about it myself more, but I just started getting it done, and she just kind of touches you in a couple spots and gets all your body fluids moving.
That's awesome. You say one more time what the name is?
It's called, the place I go to is called Flowing Still, and it's called sacrocranial therapy, I believe.
Nice. Hell yeah. Thank you for the note, brother. So I'd like to touch upon Cafe Juan if we could.
Yeah.
So you have a YouTube channel called Cafe Juan where you do a show as well. How has that been for you from the beginning? Is it something you seem to really enjoy making all the episodes? What's the process in terms of, like, why did you decide to do that? And what is your process when you're putting together an episode?
Well, Cafe Juan, I did have a lot of fun doing it because it's with other people and musicians, and the premise of it is there's always a new music demo that's done, along with another crafting, because we talk about the whole importance of life and balance and doing other activities and being in the moment. That's what Cafe Juan's all about, because instead of over analyzing the demo, recording it, we record it live along with another crafting that's happening, like either a cooking project or a gardening project, or Ben came on and did a fashion design project along with his song. And then when you're doing the song along with the activities, you really get more engaged in the moment. And I found that people would have a really good take on my show of their song.
Right.
Because they're not overthinking it, and there's stuff going on around them, and we get something really authentic. And it was a really fun thing to do. I feel like it was a pre-COVID thing, because once I started, because it was like natural light outside, like just a few people, and then everyone I feel like started doing the at home thing. So then I kind of moved on to other things, but I have a few more cafe wands coming out, and I'd eventually like to do it with like bigger artists where I pull out some of their other talents and interests other than just music, and combine that and show how it's all part of the experience, and being together when we make this music, and how naturally art can flow out when we're just doing our activities and we're in our vibe.
Totally. And I definitely felt that way coming on and doing something, like having a dual focus. Like you said, it's good to using as much of your attention on a vast array of something of stimuli in the moment. So doing two different creative things at once, it's just a freeing process. It's beautiful. So, but it takes place in your backyard, which is also where you garden. How big of a role does gardening play in your life?
Gardening's a huge part of my life because it's a point where it's part of my almost workout in the morning in my routine. Yeah. I go check out the garden. It's part of meditating. Sometimes we need to water the garden. Sometimes we need to cut the garden. Sometimes there's disease in the garden. Sometimes we're overwatering the garden. There's so many things that we have invaders in the garden, and when we're working, we can relax our minds and get all these analogies of life and our art and what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Hey, guess what? I'm rooting right now. I'm going to cut, I don't have my branches right now, but I'm pushing down. Yeah. And I'm creating, or I'm just seeding right now. There's nothing magnificent to see in the garden yet. But hey, once it's big and magnificent, all the work has already happened. And I grow, people say, the best estate outgrown door cannabis. I grow vegetables for my kids and teach them how to eat vegetables out of the garden.
Right.
And then I make topicals out of my products from the garden, and I just feel like there's a lot. And then my cooking, people say my cooking's better than a lot of people's, and they're like, "What is it, John?" And a lot of it is just the fresh, veggies.
Yeah, homegrown.
Yeah.
What is that, dude? Like you said, it's such an incredible metaphor for so many things, but creating a condition and then just letting life do its thing. In terms of how you were talking about the artistic process being that way too. If you had to give one piece of advice for somebody who is wanting to start a garden and make it something that they can actually eat from or use the things they grow, what would that advice be? Most essential.
I'd say start following at Cafe Juan.
That's right.
Because eventually my goal is to put out a farm to table gardening book for our climate zone.
Wow.
Where you learn what you can grow around here, how to make sure it's successful, and then what you can make.
That sounds awesome.
Out of it. But to answer your question directly, what can people watch? Mostly their pH. I don't think people watch their pH in the water. Certain plants like different levels of acidity. And that'll make or break. And people overwatering, watch your acidity.
So do you just get litmus strips and dip those in the soil to test that?
I've got a digital pH tester.
Gotcha.
And I test my water.
Cool.
And that's probably the number one thing that people miss.
That makes sense. I wouldn't have thought of that. Can you speak a bit on the role of your family in your life and in your creativity? Obviously,
I think it's essential. My kids really gave me the strength to be creative and be the person I am. I used to be about 20 to 30 pounds heavier and drinking too much hard alcohol and I even I used to think I was just doing the best thing, working all the time and maybe even almost being a martyr too much or doing everything for everybody else. And I really want to show my kids the joy and creativity in life. And my kids actually helped me get back into music. And when I wasn't doing music and I wanted to live my joys and live my talents and live my crafts, and because I would want them to do that too. And then my wife is amazing, not only because she enables me and lets me do all this bullshit, and God bless her, but she will also be my if I get carried away with myself too, like she'll give me the opposite spectrum. She'll show me the other side of things and give me the opposite opinion, and that's majorly appreciated too.
Definitely. I mean, that sounds like a great situation, brother. In terms of your domestic situation, like the house, it just seems like a good place to produce stuff as well.
Well, I wouldn't have that place without the family, without the drive to make that environment for my kids and be a good active husband and do this life. It's a lot of work. People are like, how do you do it all? And it's just kind of like what we talk about. It's like these activities, they inspire me to do other things easier and faster.
Right.
And because and also the kids, when I talk about the whole inspiration of music and never sleeping and tapping the subconscious, when I was like up on all hours of the night, like changing diapers and I just the kids give you an awareness, like you can wake up almost at any point, like because you're listening for them. Maybe they might need you.
That's interesting.
And it just woke up my whole subconscious.
Gotcha. Can you speak a bit on, so when your kids came around, you decided to start drinking less. Was there a specific moment you remember, like in deciding to do that? Like it was right when they were born or what?
Well, I think it was a bit after my first son was born.
Gotcha.
I had a woman who I call my fairy godmother, who's some people might call a psychic.
Okay.
Who's my wife's friend. I never told her that I had insane headaches, and she told me, she's like, you suffer from migraines, and I'm so sorry for you. I can feel it. You're having one right now.
Wow.
And it just makes me sick. And you will be cured of them if you start making music again.
Oh, wow. Dude, you told me this, I think, before. That's awesome.
And that just piqued my interest right away. I was like, what? And then she rattled off actually a whole kind of list of stuff for me. And I wrote it down in my book, even on this page, of all this stuff that most of it's come true already.
Nice.
But most of it I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
And it's not really it didn't really spoil things for me, because it really didn't make anything happen or not, because I didn't discover it. It happened until afterwards, like long afterwards. I pulled out this piece of paper. I was like, oh, wow, that was that. And that happened here.
Yeah.
And anything like the signs at first when she gave me a reading, like it almost was a distraction, because I was looking for these things to come. I was forcing them. But actually, it doesn't affect things at all if I just forgot about it.
Right.
And then it all happened. But I did decide at that point to go back to music. And then once the music happened, once I started writing the music, listening to the music, it transformed me. Like physically, mentally, I don't have headaches, and it just opened my creativity and my drive to write, pros and to work on the house and be a good family person and also just inspire other people and meet you and play music in the community and and do all the things I do, and it's really given back to me in every way.
That's awesome. Can you give her name? Is that possible?
Tracy
last name? Is she a public psychic?
I was trying to, it's so funny because I was thinking of her maiden name versus her other name, Tracy Kopecki.
Okay, awesome.
Or is it Tracy Loper? No. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. Obviously, you can edit this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what her. You can ask me that again. Let me turn this on for a second. I can't remember what her maiden name versus. I'm turning red a little bit. Her maiden name versus her regular name, but I think it's Tracy Loper is her name, but I call her my fairy godmother.
Awesome. That's such an amazing story. I love that so much. So, segueing from that, we're going to wind it up here, but my final question to you, John, can you pick one or two specific songs that you've released that are your favorites and maybe go into the stories behind two songs off of any of your music that you've put out so far?
Well, off John Juan, Never Sleeping record is Good Dog. I'm very fond of that song because that song is about the awareness of, I talked about kind of the guy who was the alcoholic and drinking too much. He was always the good dog, doing everything for everybody, but he needed to go out and catch a rabbit.
Yeah.
And Good Dog goes out and catches a rabbit, and a lot of magic happens. And that was that's the first song that came to me off Never Sleeping.
Gotcha.
And the whole thing came to me in one pass where I was walking on the beach with my newborn son, taking a nap on one of those little things strapped to me, and I had a ukulele, and I walked down the beach, and then the whole song came out, lyrics, chords. I had just started playing the ukulele too, and so the chords, there's a lot of new chords on it that I just even made up.
Nice.
And then when I got home, I was able to just write it down.
Hell yeah.
All real quick. And then Already Dead is a special one for me as well, because I've been toiling with it for a long time, because there was this music without lyrics. I've been forcing lyrics on it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found that the chorus was no lyrics. It was just the slide guitar part.
Oh, right.
And so that one is very special to me. And those, and Never Sleeping, the title track too.
Yeah, those are all bangers, man. All those songs. When you're talking about a good dog being the dog chasing the rabbit, are you saying the rabbit is chasing your creativity? Or were you saying, like, in terms of the rabbit being the alcohol?
It goes, I'm a good dog, me and my habits, but I can't contain. I ain't never caught a rabbit.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So, sometimes
the habits get away from you.
Music, sometimes you need to be driven into what I call madness, and you can be sparked into madness by many things. A song, love.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different cataclysmic things can stir you into creativity and passion, and a lot of them is your life can go your life can go haywire by it. But it's these things that kind of, when we're thrown off our daily paths, our daily routines, that we tap into our subconscious.
Totally. Well, there has to be a void for something to be created in. Like, if everything was static, then there would be nothing new to be created.
Exactly. So that's why things have to be disrupted, and that's why there is no utopia out there really necessarily, because there is no like idle, heavenly, still calm beach, because a little turmoil is essential to the whole gratification process, I believe.
Heck yeah. Well, John, thank you so much for this, man. So much great knowledge that you've talked about here. So thank you, and I can't wait for everything to read this book and for everything you have currently on tap and to try out your cannabis products. Thank you so much, brother, for being here.
Well, thank you for navigating through all my hobbies and passions, and letting me talk about all my wild metaphysical shit.
For sure. Love it, dude. All right. Peace, folks.